This decision, considered one of the most consequential by in several decades, not only threw out a Texas law, it once again threw the court back into the middle of the presidential campaign.
Today, women across America have had their constitutional rights vindicated.
In a 5-3 ruling, the Supreme Court struck down a controversial Texas law requiring abortion clinics to meet many of the same rules as hospitals, such as wider hallways and minimum numbers of parking spaces, and for clinic doctors to have admitting privileges at nearby hospitals. Supporters argued the rules would make abortion safer. But opponents said the law was designed to be too stringent, forcing clinics that couldn't meet the restrictions to close, an argument with which the court agreed.
This law would have shut down the majority of clinics in Texas, and the court said you can't do that without showing that there was a real justification, and here there wasn't.
Writing for the majority, Justice Stephen Breyer said the law violated the Constitution and placed a substantial obstacle in the path of women seeking an abortion. Joining Breyer in the opinion, the court's 3 female justices, Ginsburg, Kagan, and Sotomayor, along with Anthony Kennedy. Kennedy, who was nominated by Ronald Reagan, has become a swing vote in abortion cases, siding with liberals to reaffirm Roe v. Wade in 1992, then with conservatives 9 years ago to ban some late-term abortions.
It wouldn't have mattered if there was a President Trump nominee or if Justice Scalia was still on the bench. In that case, you would have had a 5-4 ruling instead of a 5-3 ruling. But either way, you would have had Justice Kennedy joining the 4 more liberal justices to provide a majority supporting abortion rights in this case.
In a bitter dissent, Justice Clarence Thomas suggested the case should have never been heard, writing, quote, "The court has allowed abortion clinics and physicians to invoke a constitutional right that does not belong to them, a woman's right to abortion." Tonight, the Texas governor said the ruling, quote, "erodes states' lawmaking authority to safeguard the health and safety of women." But the White House cheered it. President Obama posting on Twitter that, quote, "every woman has a constitutional right to make her own reproductive choices."
And Pamela Brown joins us now. So the long-term implications of the ruling are what?
Well, this will certainly have a ripple effect long term because there are already similar laws on the books, Anderson, and this will only make it easier for people to bring challenges to those laws. Just in the last several years, several states have enacted restrictions that really test the limits of the constitutional right to abortion. In fact, there are several cases revolving around these similar laws pending in the lower courts, and so the ruling today really sends a strong message to the lower courts about what constitutes an undue burden and certainly puts those laws in jeopardy. In addition to this, it deters other states from enacting similar laws. So certainly, Anderson, today was a big win for abortion rights activists and today and moving forward as well, Anderson.
All right, Pamela Brown. Pamela, thanks. Joining us now, CNN senior legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin, author of many books. His new one comes out in August. It's called American Heiress: The Wild Saga of the Kidnapping, Crimes, and Trial of Patty Hearst. He's written extensively on the Supreme Court. Also joining us, Planned Parenthood President Cecile Richards. First of all, Jeff, let's start with you. This decision today, the most sweeping we've seen on abortion rights since, what, 1992?
Absolutely. Anthony Kennedy, we've talked a lot about the vacancy, with Justice Scalia's death, but this is still Anthony Kennedy's court. And the fact that Justice Kennedy joined with the 4 liberals here made all the difference. Stephen Breyer wrote the opinion, but this is so important because state after state has said, especially since the Republican landslides of 2010, that we are passing abortion restrictions to help women, to protect women. Justice Breyer's opinion said was, you know what, we see through what you're doing. We recognize this is nothing to do with protecting women's rights. Our analysis of these laws says these are designed to restrict abortion, not to protect women's health.
Cecile, you agree this goes well beyond Texas?
Oh, absolutely. Jeff is exactly right. This really talked about the importance of that laws can't place an undue burden on women being able to exercise their constitutional right. I do think we're going to see more state laws challenged now and even repealed. And in fact, even this evening, we saw that the Alabama Attorney General, where they have been trying to pass and similar admitting privileges or trying to enforce admitting privileges, has said they're no longer going to try, that it's clearly unconstitutional based on this decision. So I think the decision is going to make a huge impact for Texas women, but also women all over the country.
Jeff, I mean, you talked about this being a further proof that this is still Anthony Kennedy's court. It is amazing when you think of what people thought of Judge Kennedy when he was, nominated by Ronald Reagan, and where he's come down on a lot of opinions now.
Amazing. I mean, just, Anthony Kennedy's influence is so enormous, and it goes in different directions. He is the father of gay rights on the Supreme Court. He is the author of the marriage opinion just last year, all of the important gay rights decisions. But he is also the author of Citizens United, the decision that Democrats love to hate more than any other, which essentially deregulated campaign spending. He's a mercurial figure. He has strong passions, but unlike the other 7 justices, and 8 when Justice Scalia was on the court, they do not always go in predictable or consistent directions, and he has controlled the outcome in case after case, including this one.
And still, as big as a win as this is for your organization today, I'm not the last time abortion rights are going to be tried in front of the Supreme Court.
No, probably not. And again, I think which speaks to how important this presidential election is. Obviously, this was a very strong 5-3 decision. The next president will likely appoint 1 or 2 more Supreme Court justices. Donald Trump has said he would appoint justices who would overturn Roe versus Wade. Obviously, Secretary Clinton has been a strong supporter of not only of Planned Parenthood, but of women's access to reproductive health care. So I think this is a pivotal decision, but there are a lot of fights left to have, a lot of rights that we need to protect in this country, and I think this is going to be a deciding issue for women and men when they go to vote in November.
And Jeff, just at this point, on the Merrick Garland nomination, is that just dead at this point?
Well, it's certainly dead through November. The Republicans are clearly not going to allow a vote or even a hearing before November. There is a remote outside chance that if Hillary Clinton wins the presidential election and the Democrats perhaps take over the Senate, the Republicans may say to themselves, look, Merrick Garland at 63 years old is better than anyone Hillary Clinton might nominate, so let's just rush through a confirmation. I don't think that's going to happen. So I think the next president is certainly going to have to fill the Justice Scalia, Merrick Garland vacancy, and also Ruth Bader Ginsburg is 83 years old. Anthony Kennedy turns 80 next month. Stephen Breyer is almost 80. Clarence Thomas just turned 68. I mean, even by Supreme Court standards, this is an old court, and they're going to be vacancies.
All right, Jeffrey Toobin, Cecile Richards, thanks very much.